Make no mistake about it, kids, the Elite Guitar Illuminati are surely going to be after my head for showing you guys this super easy pattern that you can use to play over any major chord in any key, as well as this cool accompanying lick to show you how I use it to play over common chord progressions. Hey there, kids, and welcome to this week's installment of Weekend Wankshop. Here with your good buddy, Uncle Ben. Today I'm going to show you a super easy pattern that you can learn and use right away to start playing over any major chord in any key. And it's anything in the major family too. It doesn't matter if it's major or major 7 or dominant 7. This lick will basically always sound good over any major type chord. It's a really easy to use and see pattern that you can utilize in jazz, blues, rock, country, western, pretty much any style of music that has you playing major chords. But before we start getting into it, let's hear it again. That's stepdad speed. And as always, you can find a full tab for this week's lick on my Instagram page. Be sure to go over to Ben Eller Guitars, find this week's lick, learn how to play it, and then upload a video of yourself wanking through it along with the hashtag Weekend Wankshop. First things first, let's talk about the simple shape that you can use to play over any major chord. Okay, let's say that I was playing over a G major chord. I'm going to put this shape down starting off on the root note of that chord. So again, since I'm playing over a G chord, I'm going to start the shape out on a G note, the 3rd fret low E string in this case. I'm going to play that note, the G, on the 3rd fret low E. I'm going to play the note a whole step above it, the 5th fret low E, which is an A note. I'm going to play the note a whole step above that, which is a 7th fret low E, a B note. And then I'm going to play the 5th fret A string. So the way to visualize that note right there is it's kind of like right under the 2nd note. That one, it's right under there. Another way to visualize it too is, if you know like a typical power chord shape, it's kind of like that right there. From the root note G, it's the power chord note, if you want to call it that, right there on the A string. That right there is the shape that you can use to play over any major chord. So in other words, if I was playing over an A major, right? I would just start that shape out on an A note. So let's try the 5th fret low E string. That's an A note. Now if I play that shape, it's going to give me the fret numbers here: 5th E, 7th E, 9th E, 7th A. That's A, B, C sharp, and E. Now I could also start that from some other A on another set of strings. That's the great thing about this shape, is it's really easy to dump onto another pair of strings. So I could start off from an A, like let's say the 12th fret A string, right? That's an A note right there. So I could dump that shape down right there. It'll yield 12, 14, 16 on the A, and then a 14 on the D. Just like that. I could also put it on a different A, like let's say 7th fret D string. There's an A note, right? I could put that shape down right there, and I've got a very usable set of notes that I could play over an A major chord. It's really easy to see and use shape across the fingerboard that you can dump down on any pair of strings. Let's go back to a G chord, for example. So if I was playing over G, I could again start that lick off from the 3rd fret low E string. That's a G note. I play the lick right there. Then I can play the lick again from the 5th fret D string. That's a G note, the root note of the chord we're playing on. So I'll plop that lick down there. Same fingering, same spacing and stuff. I could also put it on the 8th fret B string. That's a G note. So I'll put that shape down right there. So now I can have from here, and from here. And yes, for you nerds out there, those are the Final Fantasy arpeggios. The The only time you can't use that exact same shape is whenever you root it off of the G string. That's because the G and B string are tuned a third apart from each other, whereas all of your other strings are tuned a fourth apart from each other in pairs. So whenever we play this from, like, let's say the 12th fret G string, that's a G note, right? I wouldn't play the pattern like bam, 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 like I typically do on the other strings. I've got to move that note on the B string up an additional fret. So in other words, it's not going to be right there next. It's going to be a fret higher whenever I'm playing this pair on the G and B strings. Again, anywhere else, the shape is always the same, except for when I root it off of the G string. The B string note has to be a fret higher than it should be. One more time, it's not going to be 12, 14, 16, 14. It's going to be 12, 14, 16, 15. Okay? Why does this lick work? For my Spanish audience, ¿por qué? So in the case of today's lick, it takes place over a C major chord, an F major chord, and a G major chord, right? Well, a C major chord is the notes C, E, and G. Whenever I play that shape starting on a C note, it yields the notes C, D, E, G. So you can see that it grabs all of the important chord tones that are in the chord I'm playing against at that time, plus it adds in a little cool ninth right here, this D note. That's just sort of an extra flavor note. An F major chord is merely a combination of the notes F, A, and C. Now again, whenever I play that shape starting on F, it'll yield the notes F, G, A, C. So again, all the chord tones plus a cool ninth, which is still in key. G is a note that is in key for the key of C, so that's kosher. And lastly, a G major chord is the combination of the notes G, B, D. And whenever I play that lick starting off on a G note, it'll give you the notes G, A, B, D. So again, chord tones and a ninth, which isn't in the chord, but it's a nice little addition. One of the most important things that you can do whenever you're playing a solo or writing a melody is targeting notes that are in the chord you're playing against at that time. Again, I don't care what the key is or anything like that. I want you to start thinking about what chord are you playing over right now. Start trying to target those notes that are in that chord, and stuff is instantly going to start sounding a whole lot more melodic. So whenever we play this lick on top of the root note of a major chord, if you want to look at this from a really arpeggio kind of standpoint, what we're doing here is playing the root, third, and fifth, and ninth of whatever major chord it is that we're playing over. So that's the entire chord triad, all of the money notes, plus an additional note for interest on that ninth. You could say it's just a kind of like a major add 9 arpeggio, if you want to get fancy schmancy about it. And basically that first, third, fifth, and ninth sound great on top of any major 7, or even dominant 7 chord. Cool, huh? So now let's get on with today's lick, which uses this same pattern played over a C major, F major, G major chord progression. That's a 1-4-5 kind of progression in the key of C major. Here's how I would use that shape to yield some cool results. Okay, so the first chord on our hit list here is a C major. Over that, I'm going to play the shape starting from a C note. I'm going to choose the 8th fret low E string for this example. So here on the low E string, I'm going to play 8, 10, 12, then go to the A string, fret 10. Then what I'm going to do is to play the same thing but up an octave. I'm going to start from the 10th fret D string. That's a C note, right? So I'm going to play the pattern from there. 10th fret D, 12th fret D, 14th fret D, 12th fret G. So now we've played that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 notes all across a C chord. using that same shape in 2 octaves. So where we left off with the C lick was right here on the 12th G, right? Well, the F chord is coming up next. I need to find an F note. Now, what an amateur would do is to jump all the way down to the 1st fret low E string, because that's where every guitar player knows they can find an F, but that is just too much sonic and physical range to jump down. Why not shop local? Find something in the area, right? Our C lick had us leave off here on the 12th G. Well, if you play the 10th G, that's an F note. That's the root note of the F chord. That'll end right on the downbeat nicely when that F chord shows up. So this 10th fret G string is going to be the first note that I play against F. The next note I play against F is going to be the 8th fret A string. That's its octave, right? That's an F. That's an F. So in other words, this is a great starting point for the shape that we learned today over an F chord. Also this is a great starting point for the shape that we learned today over an F chord. They're both F notes. Good starting points for the lick. So over the F chord, I'm going to play 10th G, 8th A, 10th A, 12th A, 10th D. Then I'm going to play the 10th G. Again, that's a root note, an F note for our F chord. And play 10, 12, 14. That's just the start of the shape, starting from this F note. So over the F we play. So we left off right here, 14th fret G, it's an A note. Next chord coming up is a G. Now again, kind of like what I said for the F chord, let's shop local. Let's not think about the 3rd fret low E string G note. Let's think about G notes that are in the area. I'm basically going to play the same stuff I just played over F, just moved up a step. I left off here, right? I'm going to play 12th G. That's a root note of a G chord. That's a G note. And then what I'm going to do is jump down an octave, play the 10th fret A string. That's also a G note for our G chord. Start the shape off, just like what you did for F. 10, 12, 14 on the A, 12th D. And then I'm going to jump here to the 12th fret G string, again, root note of a G chord that I'm playing over right now. Then I'm going to play the shape from there. 12, 14, 16. So over the G chord we've played. And then lastly, the C chord is coming up next, so I'm going to resolve that, not by playing the 3rd fret A string, that's way too far away. I left off here, 16th fret G string, it's a B note, right? So the 17th fret G is a C note, a perfect note to hit against the C chord that's showing up at that time. So let's cover that one more time. Each chord gets 8 notes played against it, all utilizing the shape that we learned today. Over the C chord, I'll start here from C and play 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. F chord's coming up, so I move here. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Here comes the G chord, so I start from G. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And then lastly, the C chord is coming around, so I'm going to hit its root note right here at C, 17th fret G string. C, F, G, C. All perfectly inside each of those chords with a nice little passing ninth. Neato. A lot of players get really confused whenever they're rooting off scales or arpeggios or chords or whatever off of a string that isn't the E. This is a horrible, horrible habit that a lot of players get into. Most players, if they're playing over those changes using this shape, they would think C, F, G, and C. And see how I rooted all that stuff off the low E string and I had to like haul ass to get all over the fretboard to do it? This is a great lick to use to get yourself out of the habit of that. So I think a great idea would be to see how many different ways you could get around that chord progression using that shape. Like C from this C, F from this F, G from this G, and then C from this C. Again, adapting the shape to suit the stupid G and B strings. Then maybe you do a different round where you have C, F, G, and so on. Just try to figure out how many different ways you can play over those 3 major chords using that one pattern, all over the neck, all over different pairs of strings. Most importantly, not just rooting that pattern off of the low E string. That's a habit that I think 99.9% of all guitar players need to break. Quit using that low E string to guide you across every scale shape that you know. And for all you picking geeks like me, I'm just cross picking my way through this year using alternate picking, going across the strings here. Good character builder. So there you go, guys, a really easy to apply concept that you can use to play over any major chord in any key. Next time you're playing over something and you encounter like a B flat major chord, try rooting that pattern off of a B flat. Maybe this one. Or maybe this one. If you encounter a G, play G, or G, or G, or G, and so on. Try to see how many different ways you can use that pattern to get around it. And keep in mind too, you don't have to just play straight up like that. You can add a little style, a little sass in there if you want. I use a lot of this pattern in like my country playing and stuff. We'll explore that more later. For right now, keep it basic. Root that pattern off of different strings, not just your E string. Shop local, use whatever area of the board that you're in to try to find a root note of the chord you're playing on at that time. Again, just saying what key am I in, it's not good enough. You gotta ask what chord am I playing over, target the notes that are in that chord, which is exactly what this pattern does, and you'll instantly start sounding a whole lot more melodic and a lot more connected with the chords that you're playing over. Because I know somebody's going to ask, there is a slightly different pattern that you can use over almost every minor chord. We'll explore that in another episode sometime. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you guys get some cool ideas from that concept. Please be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Ben Eller Guitars. And go and like my new Facebook fan page over on facebook.com/Uncle Ben Eller. Also, if you'd like to book some one-on-one Skype lessons with me, be sure to drop me an email, benellerguitars@gmail.com. Stay tuned for another sick lick next week. Cheers, guys.